TNCRadio.live. It's a Wednesday night, and that means it's time for Clutch Time Sports with Anderson and Banker right here on TNC Radio.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tom Kelly. Good evening, truckers all over America. Happy Wednesday night to you. I hope you're feeling good out there. It's a beautiful day in sunny California. Had a little bit of rain, a little bit of drizzle, but we're okay. We're doing all right. JB, my main man, Josh Banker, how you doing tonight?
Well, you mentioned drizzle. You know why Snoop Dogg uses an umbrella, right? For drizzle. That's right. And you know what's funny? I don't know how, in your neck of the woods, Ivan, but we had some pretty major like thunderstorms over here in a little further southern Orange County, and it was pouring earlier today. So it was refreshing and very well needed here in SoCal. We can use all the rain we can get.
You can say that again. We didn't get the rain, but I did. I think it was somewhere around 3 this morning. I heard the crackling of thunder, but no rain came, but we did get it yesterday lightly. I'm kind of envious, man. You should have sent some of that rain my way.
Oh, man. It was. I don't know how it happens, but I always find the way to go to my car or taking my garbage out to the trash right as the rain is starting to come down when I don't realize it. I don't know how I time that, but for some reason that's, I need my umbrella for drizzle.
Brella. Hey,
thank you, Rihanna.
You caught some rain, and so did Mr. Tom Kelly, because I told you guys I was right and I was wrong. I was wrong on the Rays, but boy, was I right on Philly and the Cardinals. Oh, I knew they'd beat them, but I didn't think they'd sweep them. Oh, my.
Yeah, that was a surprise for sure. But here's my question for you. With these 4 games, 4 games left, 4 matchups, if you will, rank for me from least surprising, most surprising upsets, if there were to be upsets. What would be the upsets?
Of the current matchups going now.
The current matchups.
Okay. Ivan, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. I would say the least surprising and the most surprising, right?
Yep. All 4 of them.
Okay. All 4 of them. The fact that Philly is leading the Braves right now, or beat the Braves, and I think, are they up right now, Josh?
It's tied. 6th inning,
okay.
No score.
So I thought they'd do well in the first round, but to get out of the wild card doing this well against the Braves shocked me. And I'd have to say Padres-Dodgers. I was just expecting Padres would do a better job against the Dodgers the way they came out in the wild card. JB.
Yeah,
I can't do all 6. I said those 2.
I would say of the series left, the one that I would be most surprised to see an upset in is the Padres and Dodgers. Just because the Dodgers have owned the Padres really over the last 3 years. They swept them in that shortened 2020 season in the playoffs as well, when the Dodgers, won their awesome World Series for the first time in, 48 years or whatever it was. I'm exaggerating, of course. After that, I think the second least surprising upset to me would be the Phillies over the Braves as well. I just think the Phillies are they're hot right now, and for whatever reason, the Braves just haven't found their mojo yet, and they kind of sputtered into the playoffs after they won against the Mets. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. The one I think that would be the most surprising upset would be the Guardians over the Yankees at this point, for the main reason that the Guardians just, even though they swept the Rays, they only scored 3 runs.
What would be the bigger upset? Guardians over New York or Padres over Los Angeles?
For me, it'd be Padres over Dodgers.
I think the biggest upset for me would be the Guardians over the Yankees at this point.
Okay. So
I'm never going to say anything against the Yankees. Sorry.
Young Cleveland beating the New York Yankees would be the biggest shock, I think.
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
It would be a huge shock. And close to that would be the Padres beating the Dodgers. It wouldn't be that surprising to have Philadelphia beat the Braves. It would be surprising, but not just you stop my heart if the Mariners beat Houston, because the Mariners are playing good ball these days. They've got a great young team. I just don't see how Cleveland and their 17 rookies can take on the Yankees. I mean, that's a real David Goliath kind of thing going on there. And
and I see how they got past the Rays, because the Rays just don't have the superstars, either offensively or pitching that the Yankees have, and they were able to survive winning 2 games with 3 runs against the Rays. You're not going to be able to do that against the Yankees.
The Padres' number 1 guy is Yu Darvish. Seriously? Seriously?
It's true.
But
what's funny about that, Tom? I mean, this just goes to show you, when it gets to the playoffs, anything can happen. Because the Mets threw out DeGrom and Scherzer, and the Padres still were able to go out to the East Coast and win 2 out of 3 in New York. And that includes a Yu Darvish start. So go ahead.
And I was just going to say, just real quick, it's in the mid-second inning, and right now, Padres-Dodgers, it's 1-1. So,
it would be... I don't know. I think Cleveland beating the Yankees would be the biggest upset in sports in a long time. I mean, that you're talking App State over Michigan.
The reason why it would be such a big upset is because of Judge's 62 home runs. If you take that off the table, it would just be regular baseball. But you cannot go out and set any kind of record in any sport and then not cap it off by getting to the pennant of the World Series. You just can't do that.
Yeah. Well, especially something like that. And it's not like the rest of the Yankees suck or something.
Well, our pitching hasn't been that great. It hasn't been consistent, and that's my biggest concern.
Yeah. So you think Padres over the Dodgers would be the big upset? That would be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think I think so. Just because, like I said, the dominance that the Dodgers have had over the Padres, over the last 3-4 years is they certainly have the talent to win some games, the Padres.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, there is just this hex that the Dodgers have over San Diego right now that it's going to take some miracles for that to happen.
So the biggest surprises would be, in order: biggest surprise, San Diego; next biggest surprise, Cleveland; next biggest surprise, Seattle; and Philadelphia. Not that much of a surprise.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to keep that. We're going to keep that part of the tape. We'll come back in a week and see how we did. We'll see if any of these were the big surprises, because I think this is.
But let's be honest. The reason why the Padres are such a big surprise if they win, we're talking about the Padres. We're talking about the club that continuously shoots themselves in the foot, and to shoot yourself in the foot and not have your best player on the field and beat the Dodgers. Oh my gosh.
Well, and not only that, but just like you said, Yu Darvish is their number 1 starter right now. And when was the last time we could rely on Yu Darvish for anything in the playoffs, as compared to? And what's interesting is, if you guys watched any of the game last night, Julio Urias for the Dodgers has blossomed into this absolute, I don't want to say Madison Bumgarner type playoff pitcher, but man, has he been good. And it's amazing that with a guy like Clayton Kershaw still on that staff, and Walker Buehler's hurt for the Dodgers, right, Julio Urias is just amazing. And he knows how to command a game better than just about any playoff pitcher out there. And it's funny, I was texting a Dodger friend of mine yesterday about the Astros and Mariners game. We'll talk into more detail about some of these playoffs series as the night progresses. But the way the game ended yesterday for the Mariners, the Astros really had no reason to be in that game until the later innings, when Justin Verlander, just for whatever reason, something switches off when it comes to the playoffs. And as a Giants fan, I remember obviously Pablo Sandoval hitting 3 home runs in the World Series Game 1 in 2012 against Verlander, to a point where, like, now you throw on what did he throw, 4 innings yesterday and gave up 6 runs? And just like, where did the guy with a sub-2 ERA go over, this entire regular season going into the playoffs, especially when you had a long layoff like they did. And maybe that's the reason. Who knows?
JB, are you saying that Verlander is the Aaron Rodgers of baseball?
No, I don't know if I'd go that far, but Rodgers has a championship.
Yeah, but he chokes in the playoffs.
Well, that's true.
Verlander does too.
I know.
He does. Yeah, they both do for sure. But it's interesting. I'll be curious to see how the Mariners respond tomorrow, and which will bring up another interesting topic of conversation after we come back from this break about just the schedule of this American League Division Series. It's just kind of odd. But we're going to take a quick break and be back for segment number 2. You're listening to Clutch Time Sports right here on TNCRadio.live.
How about that?
You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune in to the Truckers Network radio show with Shelly Johnson weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. Hauling livestock. 3 things to consider. There are many different types of freight you can haul as a truck driver, and livestock is just one of them. According to the FMCSA, there are roughly 250,000 drivers who are specialty livestock haulers in the United States. Hauling livestock isn't for everyone. It takes a special kind of truck driver with patience and who doesn't mind the smell or getting their hands dirty. Drivers with previous experience in hauling livestock make a great candidate for livestock drivers. However, drivers without livestock experience can still make great livestock truck drivers. Here are 3 things to consider regarding hauling livestock. Different types of livestock. While cattle make up the largest part of the livestock transportation industry, there are many different types of livestock you can haul. Some common examples of livestock loads are chickens, pigs, goats, and sheep. As a truck driver, you can get the necessary training to haul high-value livestock. Animal care. You'll want to be educated on the type of livestock you're hauling so you can provide the best care. Livestock drivers also need to have patience and drive defensively. Higher pay. Due to livestock haulers needing specific requirements, they're paid a higher rate for loading and unloading animals. They're also considered a specialty hauler, so the pay is increased, and for good reason. Drivers hauling livestock must maintain additional certifications to show their understanding of the risks involved in hauling animals. Some risks include escaped livestock, injury, or deck collapsing. Drivers will also have to acquire a specific type of trailer depending on the animals hauled. Livestock haulers need to also consider the biosecurity involved in transporting animals. If your livestock trailer isn't frequently cleaned and disinfected after each load, animals can become infected by feces, blood, and urine, feed and water containers, insects and parasites, live bacteria, or viruses on surfaces. Livestock haulers must be aware of the transmission risks from delivery site to delivery site.
You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network radio show with Shelly Johnson, weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
The intrigue of painting a still. I'd like to paint a picture for you, a portrait actually, of a cowboy in repose. Western art abounds with such studies. There's one particularly famous one depicting a sleeping cowboy using his saddle as his pillow. Artists tell me the intrigue of painting a still silent cowboy rests in the contrast with his vigorous lifestyle. So anyway, a cowboy in repose. But this portrait you have never seen before. The setting is a ranch house porch. The body reclining in the rustic wooden chair appears long and lanky, trail-scarred leather chaps draping his slender legs. The cowboy's booted feet are propped against an upright porch timber. His arms are resting gently by his sides. But look at the face. And look at the eyes, camping out beneath that Stetson brim, squinting, pinched, intense, and yet somehow so peaceful. This is Mona Lisa Texas style. The weathered visage and the ghost of a slight secret smile. It's a cowboy in repose. A real cowboy, as a matter of fact, a fellow named, and yes, I do mean Lynn, named L-Y-N-N. But this is the rest of the story. This rugged rancher grew up not under the western stars, but in a town Yet he loved cattle right from the start. Lynn worked all sorts of odd jobs so that he could save enough money to buy a calf. His parents said, "Why do you want to do that?" His answer was always the same, "Because I want to be a rancher." And so it was that the family garage became young Lynn's wide-open spaces, the grazing ground for a real live calf, and then 2 of them, and eventually 3, then 4. The boy fed him from a baby bottle at first, and pretty soon Lynn's ranch outgrew the garage. He began renting small tracts of pasture outside town. He took good care of his animals. In fact, for a while there, around high school, Lynn wanted to be a veterinarian. "I got to look after my doggies," he'd say. Well, Lynn never did become a vet. He did grow up to become a riding, roping, ranching cowboy with 1,000-head herd all his own. Oh, yes, he also found a way to help pay for the rest of those calves, the ones that now comprise his Albion, Texas stock. It was another odd job, I guess you might say. Lynn figured that he'd work at it 4 or 5 years, long enough to get started. He'd only be good 4 or 5 years, he thought, but as it turned out, he was good a spell longer than that. You see, most men enter professional sports with a mind to stay in as long as possible. Not Lynn. He wanted out as soon as possible, soon as he could afford to buy his own ranch. It was just his luck that his body stayed young and fresh and fast, longer than any other athlete in the history of his specialty. Lynn thought his arm would go dead in no time, you see, but it refused, at least until he had struck out more batters than any pitcher in big league baseball ever. Some call him the greatest pitcher of all time. But now you've met the man who became a full-time midlife cowboy after blazing a trail through the Major League record books. Lynn Nolan Ryan Jr. You've known him as Nolan Ryan. Now you know the rest of the story. The rest.
There you go, guys.
I just like the way they, you know him as Nolan Ryan. We know him as the Ryan Express, but to call him Lynn, I never think about that his first name is Lynn Nolan Ryan. JB, that was a good one. I didn't realize that he rode off to the sunset just to ranch.
Well, I still can't think of Nolan Ryan and not think of him putting Robin Ventura in a headlock after Ventura stormed the mound after getting hit by a pitch, and possibly the best ever knuckle sandwich to the forehead of Robin Ventura. One of the best, defenses of the mound you've ever seen. You know, he was one of those guys too. As I was growing up, my formative years in the mid '80s, as a Giants fan, I remember him and Will Clark, my all-time favorite player. Will Clark's first at bat ever in the Astrodome, hitting a home run to dead center field off of Nolan Ryan. I mean, there's just so many Nolan Ryan stories that you could go off of, and as you all can't see, our producer Tom Kelly is giving us a zoom in of Nolan Ryan with his big 10-gallon hat on there and a lasso in one hand and his chaps on his legs, and now you know the rest of the story.
There it is.
Well done.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the playoffs here. Playoffs, Ivan. Just a quick score update.
Playoffs.
Yeah, playoffs. The Braves have taken a 2-0 lead on the Phillies in the bottom of the 6th inning with a couple of runs on some singles from Matt Olson and Austin Riley. The Dodgers have taken a 2-1 lead on the Padres after the end of 2. A solo homer from Max Muncy giving them the lead. So what I wanted to talk about, Max Muncy, that guy can swing it. I was kind of interested with the way the schedule is laid out for this playoffs, especially for this round. It's interesting. The first 2 games of the National League Series get played in consecutive days. The American League Series started yesterday, but they get today off, and then they play another game, and then they get another day off to travel and play 3 straight games, one on Saturday, Sunday, and then they would travel again and play on Monday if there was a Game 5 that was necessary. The National League's pretty, straightforward. They get 2 straight, and then the day off to travel, and then 3 straight games after that. But I find it interesting that the teams that have gotten these buys in the first round, the Dodgers, Braves, Astros, Yankees, how they've all come out, some of them either there's no gray area. You're either right on top of things, like the Dodgers were right off the bat last night against the Padres, and then the Yankees right out of the gates against the I almost said Indians, the Guardians. I put another $1 in the swear jar because that's where it goes. But whereas the Braves were sluggish, the Astros were sluggish, and they still were able to win that game. But kind of interesting because baseball players, more than any, I think, athlete out there, are such creatures of habit. It'll be interesting to see how things go, especially in the American League Series with the schedule the way it is.
Yeah, it will. I mean, you earn that bye. I mean, I don't mind the way the system is set up. I liked it, and thank you for telling me. If you guys don't know by now, JB is probably the baseball guru between the two of us. I thought it was still the single game in the first round. It was nice to see that it was 3 games, but you earn that. Hey, if you win your division, you earn that bye. And I think you said it best for my Yankees. They needed it. They really needed to have a little bit of time to recover from chasing that 62 games. But I will say this, because we're used to winning, and we are a club of winning, and I'm talking pennants and World Series, that 62 homers is going to be null and void if they don't get down the road and win the pennant or win the World Series. No one's going to care. If you love the pinstripes, you're not going to care about Judge's 62 home runs. You'll say, great, but we didn't get anything out of it.
Yeah, and I have a feeling too that the Yankee fans are very much nervous, not only about this playoffs situation, but Aaron Judge is a pending free agent as well. So nobody really knows. I would still lean very heavily on Judge re-signing with the Yankees, just because I think they and maybe the Dodgers have the biggest pocketbooks to be able to offer him the most money. But, if they don't win and they lose Judge, there is going to be some sour apples in New York, unintended. Big apple.
We're going to demand heads. I mean, the Yankees have a history of putting their players out the pasture. I mean, they almost did it to the captain. They did it to Bernie Williams. They did it to Super Mario. They don't just let you ride off into the sunset. You call up one day and you find out, nah, we're not bringing you back. And this guy is right in his prime. He's 30 years old. The problem I have with the Yankees and playing around with contracts is you don't know which direction the wind is going to blow with management. What you're saying, Josh, should be a slam dunk. Get this guy under contract and move on. But for them to play this game says to me, and it's really making me nervous, says to me they've got some other ideas. Not saying they're going to move on that, but they're thinking of some other ideas.
Well, and it always goes down to the player who, wants to bet on themselves. I mean, Lamar Jackson from the Baltimore Ravens is a perfect example of this. But, I mean, obviously Aaron Judge is the top of the heap. I mean, the guy sets the American League home run record for a single season after basically saying, you know what? It doesn't sound like we're going to get this thing done before the season starts. So I'm going to bet on myself. I mean, imagine if he tore his ACL or, whatever, tore his Achilles or something during the middle of the season. That's a big risk that he's taking. Now, I mean, obviously that may be a difference between, let's say, 500 million and 300 million, but still it's a big risk. And now he's taken his ball and running with it literally, because he's going to have probably one of the biggest paydays ever for a free agent.
Real quick before we go to break, what was Soto's payday with the?
I mean, he's got to get re-signed too. I mean, so there's a lot of things on the line, because the Padres gave up a lot for him in order to get a chance to re-sign him as well, because they only have him for 1 more year under contract.
But what do you think they're going to have to pay to keep him?
I would say at least $350 million total for a contract. What length that will be, I don't know, but I think Judge is probably going to get more at this point.
Right.
Although Soto is 7 years younger than Judge. So we'll see.
Well, folks, we're going to take a break real quick. We'll talk to you on the other side of this break. You listen to Clutch Time Sports on TNCRadio.live.
Ready for the power of positive and something that will put you back to a time you wanted to last forever? Music is the ultimate time machine. What was your favorite time? Do you want to go back there? LTD Radio features the songs of the 70s, 80s, and 90s that will transport you to a happier time. It'll make you smile and brighten your day. We could all use that about now. TNCRadio.live is proud to carry the great music of LTD Radio.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. In part one, we were talking about stress, and I shared a story about how some people actually escape stress by jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. For most of us, that would be an experience that would create stress. So, what in the world is stress? Stress is a specific reaction in the body to a non-specific stimulus, meaning anything can create stress for someone if they perceive it as a threat. Now, what happens when we're stressed is that the body is preparing us to do one of two things, either to fight or to flight. And most of us understand that best when we think of an example like seeing flashing lights in our rearview mirror. We automatically know how it feels when that police officer is bearing down on us and we need to pull over. You know, our hearts start racing and our chest gets constricted and tight, and you know, our breathing becomes rapid and shallow, and the blood's pumping to the major muscle groups, you know, chest, back, arms, shoulders, again, preparing us to take some action. And if you follow that scenario all the way through, whether or not the police officer pulls us over or is aiming for the next guy, usually minutes later, the stress response stops. You know, we return to normal, to equilibrium. And, you know, it was just there for a burst, that whole fight or flight. That's called an alarm reaction. There was a professor at the University of Montreal, a guy named Hans Selye, who studied what he called the GAS syndrome. GAS, not the kind that my kids complain about, but GAS stands for the General Adaptation Syndrome. And that's how the body prepares and deals with stress. So the very first stage of stress is this alarm reaction where we go into fight or flight. I'll take you through the next two stages and then what we could do about stress in the upcoming videos.
Hear the best of TNCRadio.live every night. It's TNC Radio Primetime. Interviews, music, information, and news you can use every night. 7 to 9 Eastern, 6 to 8 Central, TNC Radio Primetime.
Welcome back in TNC Radio.live. It's Clutch Time Sports with Anderson and Banker.
Thank you again, Mr. Kelly. And just for those of you that are out there driving hard tonight, just to bring you up real quick, the Braves are up on Philly, top of the seventh, and Dodgers had a 2-1 top of the third lead. It is now 2-2. That is going to be a scary series. Anyways, it is the third time, or the third segment of the hour here. You guys know what time it is. It's about rings. It's about championships. That's because in the last 4 years, we done won Trey rings.
All right, we'll try to scoot through these a little bit here because we know the topic of conversation seems to be the playoffs. So we'll get through these a little bit quicker than normal tonight. So Ivan, in a time of crisis and when the NFL could obviously use any good PR they could get, how about we give a shout out to Zaquandre White, and I'm not going to try to say that 5 times fast, and Raheem Mostert, and a number of Miami Dolphins, including their ownership, which helped give much needed relief to the North Fort Myers area that was heavily affected by Hurricane Ian. White grew up in Cape Coral and went to high school in North Fort Myers. So he and several teammates and staff recently made the 2+ hour drive to hand out supplies, food, and water to those in need out there. And Dolphins players actually raised $33,000, and the organization and team owner Stephen Ross donated $50,000, and then the NFL pitched in $75,000 for water, meals, cleaning supplies, diapers, and other household items. The funds were also they also established a 2-week feeding site in coordination with World Central Kitchen, which will offer meals from Dolphins Food Relief and a bunch of minority-owned restaurants throughout Lee County. So shout out to all of those on the Dolphins and really everybody that's put in all the time and effort to help the poor people there of Southwest Florida that were affected so much by Hurricane Ian.
Awesome.
That's rank number 1. Rank number 2, Ivan, if you can guess this, I'll give you $100. I'll just tell you that right now.
Oh, wow.
But you
involved.
can't use your internets.
My hands are up.
Internets for looking this up. So, Ivan, do you know what Tom Brady and former 4-time major tennis champion Kim Clijsters have in common? I'll give you 3 seconds.
Okay. They played a shutout.
0. No, well, maybe, but no, that's not what we were going for. Well, Tom Brady and Kim I'm glad my wallet is safe. Tom Brady and Kim Clijsters just were announced as part of an ownership group for a Major League Pickleball expansion team.
Wow.
The MLP, Major League Pickleball, I cannot make this up, is becoming quite big amongst other pro athletes as well, as they join LeBron, Draymond Green, Kevin Love, and Drew Brees, who are all current investors in the MLP. Now, the league was founded last year and will expand from its current 12 teams to 16 in 2023, with prize money expected to surpass $2 million next year. So, goes without saying, but sounds like pickleball is becoming a pretty big deal.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew, my biggest concern about pickleball, and because my daughter plays tennis, I watched in the tennis club as the owner took out 2 courts to put in 4 or 6 courts of pickleball courts. My only concern is with pickleball and this massive rush to invest in it. Wasn't there this thing called arena football one time?
True, but how many people can play arena football as compared to pickleball?
A lot. Just think about the average NAIA, D3, D2, D1 player that does make it to the NFL.
Well, but I don't know. But I think pickleball, I think, is pretty accessible to a lot of people, and you don't need hundreds of dollars worth of equipment to play it either, or a big arena or whatever. But anyway, so Tom Brady and Kim Clijsters, we'll see how they do. It'll be an interesting story to follow. So rank number 3, Ivan, you and I grew up in a time where anything electronic back in the day was super expensive, super cool, but oftentimes super unattainable, right?
Yes.
So do you remember when Power Wheels came out, which gave you the chance to ride in like a dune buggy or a sports car or a fire engine or whatever?
Yep.
Well, kids of today, especially ones that love hockey, will get a chance, or sorry, you mentioned it before as hockey, I think is how you say it.
Hockey. Get that hockey.
Kids of today will get a chance to drive their own Zamboni.
Oh, now
That's
that
right.
would be fun.
So the Zamboni Company, and there is one, yes, the Zamboni Company and the NHL have partnered with Cool Cars Playground to launch the world's first electric Zamboni ride-on toy, which is being released next month. So the 22-pound rechargeable battery-powered vehicle will be available through the NHL's online retail store and the official sites for Zamboni, of course, and Cool Cars Playground. It's designed for kids ages 3 to 8 and has the same horn sound as a Zamboni. It'll also have a quote-unquote snow collection tank for storage, working LED headlights, and even a media center with a speaker. And it'll also come with an NHL shield and a complete set of logos for all 32 NHL teams. It'll cost you $349 and a couple of teeth. But hey, you know, if you're a hockey fan, that's something to look forward to. And that's tonight's Trey Rangs. Now, Ivan, I know you grew up in a hockey area.
Oh, come on, man.
How cool would you have been with your friends if you had a Zamboni that you got to drive around?
Look at Zamboni. That I'm surprised they haven't done this in a long time. Yeah. You're awesome. The Zamboni is so cool. It is. There's something about the way that thing just cleans the ice, and it just gives that nice shine to it. And it's just part of life back there. You know, I can hear my mother now yelling at me, "Who put these pucks in my freezer?"
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
Yeah, Zamboni. I have a 7-year-old nephew. I don't know. Maybe I got to think about it. In fact, one of the things that I know that you know that he lives in the Columbus, Ohio area.
Yes.
One of the cheap entertainment things that my brother likes to do with him is take him to see Ohio State hockey games. He loves it. Loves it. So maybe I got to start saving up for an electric Zamboni for him to ride.
So did you guys catch the start of the hockey season last night?
I did.
By the
Rangers and the Lightning.
By the ref. Did you hear this?
Welcome to opening night of the 2022-23 NHL season. What's better than this? Good luck to all players. Let's have a great season.
That was nice.
That was the head official before dropping the first puck of the season.
Yeah. What did you think about
last night at the Garden?
What did you think about that?
That was
interesting.
Hey, they're trying to make it exciting. That's all.
I guess. I mean, nothing says excitement than a referee saying, "Hey, let's have a good season! Yay!" I don't know. What'd you think, Tom?
I thought it was an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's just so cornball.
And another Bittencourt, whatever, dude. Come on.
You know, we'll have to get into the discussion of how hockey is played mostly in the lower part of North America, yet the biggest fan base is in in Canada. Still the largest players, or the number of players in the NHL, are Canadians. Second would be Europe. Third, of course, would be Americans. So that's a whole nother discussion to itself. But hey, Maple Leafs Maple Leafs are playing right now. They're in the third period. It's 3-3 against the Montreal Canadiens. And the Bruins and the Capitals finished. The Bruins killed them 5-2. So I love hockey. It's a fun sport. It's just a fun sport.
Well, and if the little kids could drive around Zambonis, during the intermissions too. I mean, come on now.
It's the way it goes. It's the way it goes. Hey, what's going on with baseball? Anybody got the scores?
Yeah, the Dodgers are now trailing San Diego 3-2 in the bottom of the third. The Braves are still up 3-0 on the Phillies. But we got one more segment to go. I'm sure we'll highlight some more playoff baseball. We also got an announcement to make next segment as well about next week's show. So stick around. You're listening to Clutch Time Sports right here on TNC Radio.live.
I'm Shelley Johnson with Kathy Tuccaro. You can hear us Tuesdays on TNCRadio.live at 8 p.m. Eastern on Women Road Warriors. And don't miss Steve Summers' Overnight Drive right here on TNCRadio.live, weeknights midnight to 5 a.m. Eastern. Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret. Mental health is a topic that isn't addressed enough in the trucking industry. There are many articles, websites, and businesses that can help truck drivers live a healthy lifestyle. But what about mental health? Mental health issues are not uncommon in truck drivers. In fact, trucking poses several risk factors when it comes to mental health issues. Lack of sleep, loneliness, stressful work environment, lack of physical activity. Truck driving can be rewarding, but health issues such as sleep apnea, obesity, diabetes, and depression can result from the strains of the job. So how do drivers prevent these health issues? Stress is an unavoidable part of trucking. Trucking allows you to see beautiful parts of the country, but it also puts you in many stressful situations. Driving in traffic in unfamiliar cities creates stress on a driver. There's stress when you're not sure if you're going to be able to deliver your load on time. You also can become stressed when you're away from home for so long. As you can tell, there are plenty of stress triggers when you drive professionally for a living. One of the best ways to reduce stress is by learning how to handle it. I realize it's easier said than done. It takes time and self-discipline. Here are some examples of ways you can reduce stress as a truck driver. Listen to music or a podcast. Start eating healthy. Exercise or stretch. Talk with family and friends. Get good sleep. Plan your trip out. In addition to managing stress, there are other ways you can keep good mental health while on the road. Drivers often portray the image of being tough. Mental health is not a discussion that many truckers are going to have. Communicating your mental health struggles with friends and family, therapists, or other drivers is a good way to work through your mental health struggles. Here's some more ways you can stay mentally healthy when you're on the road. Stay in touch with loved ones. Establish a morning and night routine. Bring a pet on the road. Travel with your spouse. Consider team driving. Bring things on the road to keep you entertained, like a laptop, video games, or TV. Occasionally book a hotel room. It's nice to get out of your truck every once in a while. Mental health is just as important as physical health. Drivers need to prioritize their mental health and take the necessary steps needed to be mentally healthy. It all starts with communicating with someone you trust, managing stress, and taking time out of the day to do something nice for yourself. For more information on mental health in truck drivers, check out Common Mental Health Issues Truck Drivers Face on thetruckersnetwork.net. Thanks for listening.
I'm Ron Samuels. We put it in reverse gear so you can enjoy the history of popular music and hear the soundtrack of life Wednesdays at 8 Eastern and 7 Central, right after the train station on TNCRadio.live.
Okay. All right, fans, welcome back. It's time for Dodger Baseball. And as a Giants fan, you can't believe how much pain I am in to say that, by the way. Dodgers have just tied up the Padres in the third. A Trey Turner home run has given the Dodgers a 3-3 tie against the Padres. They've hit 3 solo home runs, Ivan. Manny Machado has hit one for the Padres, but it's Freeman, Muncy, and Trey Turner for the Doyers, as they're commonly called down here. But, yeah, 3-3 in the third.
How about that?
That's right. How about that? And it's still 3-0 Braves as we go to the
Darvish gets a bonus each time he gives up one of those home runs, too. So that's what's cool.
Yeah, I hope there's no drinking game for any home runs allowed by Yu Darvish tonight. Hey, I know we teased this at the end of the last segment, but we want to highlight next week, the start of the NBA season will have basically been a day by the time we come back to you next week. And we're so excited to announce that we're going to have our first guest ever here on Clutch Time Sports. A Biola University alum, just like us, Ivan. Mr. Joey Lynn, who covers the Clippers for Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, and who'll be starting a LA Clippers podcast for the Sporting Tribune. A young kid that I actually was kind enough to be able to help mentor a little bit and doing some play-by-play for basketball and stuff. He's doing some great things. Going to talk about the whole NBA season, of course. Going to highlight some stuff for the Clippers since he obviously is an expert on them. But we're really excited to have him. Next week we'll be putting a post or two on Instagram and Twitter, by the way, at Clutch Time TNC as well. So excited to have Joey Lynn on next week. And Ivan, I'm sure you're looking forward to the NBA season. This is your time right now before college starts. I know you're going to get into that too, but NBA time is fun time in October.
Well, it's a perfect segue having Joey come on and talk about the Clippers and really talk about NBA in general. We would be remiss if we did not mention the Draymond Green punch that knocked the lights out of Jordan Poole. I'm sure when he woke up, he was looking at everybody trying to figure out what happened. But real quick, not talking about that, what is your take, JB? And I know this is your team. I got to say this. Josh Banker is a Golden State Warrior fan. He has been one since a kid. What is your take on the health of Klay Thompson? And are we going to see a healthy Klay Thompson this year?
It's interesting. They are certainly babying him again through the preseason. And, I'm hoping that we get, I think a realistic amount of games would probably be 60 out of the 82 this year. And
right.
I mean, it all comes down to being healthy going into the playoffs. That's the magic word of the day, it feels like. I'm all for doing whatever they think they need to do in order to keep him healthy. And thankfully, they've developed talent like Jordan Poole to be able to take the pressure off of him so that they don't need Steph Curry to really be the primary scorer. What I'm really interested to see, and we'll talk about this with Joey next week, but I mean, James Wiseman looks fantastic.
Yeah, he does.
To start this preseason. And I know it's just preseason, but boy, if the Warriors can get some athleticism in the middle to go with Curry and Thompson and Poole and Wiggins, I mean, they're going to still be pretty unstoppable barring injury, if you ask me.
You know what? You said a good thing with Wiseman. I have really been, and being a father of a big man, and just to give you an idea, my son is 6'9.5", almost 6'10". They just develop differently, and I've never seen. They're very, I would say, the Lakers, New York Knicks have had that history. Pat Riley down there with the Miami Heat. There's only been a small amount of teams that have had that mindset of, I've got to be a little more patient with bigger guys. They'll catch on. Their body moves a little bit differently, but once they get going, they get some maturity, especially when they're young. Man, they just become just a beast on the court, and you cannot defend them. So I'm glad the way they took their time with them. They didn't get impatient, and I think that's going to pay off tremendously for them.
I agree, and it just goes to show you too. I mean, the way that Wiseman plays is not necessarily something the Warriors have to have him rush back for, because it's not really the type of game that they play. But we saw what Kevon Looney provided them, especially in the finals. I mean, that guy carried them on the glass and defensively to the point where now if you can build a guy like James Wiseman into that same mold but provide some offense too, even if it's just a fourth or fifth option to Curry and Wiggins and Thompson and Poole, that's a plus that very few teams in the NBA have.
I completely agree. Now, guess what, JB? I'm going to switch directions with you, and I'm going to do this because, guys, we're going to talk about real quick. We're going to name a little pick'em. So, JB, let's talk about a little NFL. what is going on this coming weekend. I am 3-2 in my fantasy. I'm having the best season of my life. So I'm a little happy right now. But JB, let's talk a little NFL real quick because truckers out there rolling, and Sunday's coming up. I should say Thursday's coming up, and then Sunday and Monday. What's going on this week in football, my man?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a kind of a little shortened version of our finish line that we had been doing for a little bit of time here, but some games to really look forward to this weekend. The Chiefs and the Bills get a rematch of that classic AFC playoff game from last year, which I think they scored about 75 points in the last 5 minutes of regulation and overtime last year. Chiefs are 2.5-point favorite, or dogs at home.
Dogs at home.
2.5
What?
dogs at home.
What?
To the Buffalo. Well, yeah, I know.
No.
To the Buffalo Bills.
No.
And I have a feeling that's the reason why Mr. Kelly highlighted this on our screen before we even started talking about it. But yeah, they're 2.5-point dogs at home to the Bills this upcoming weekend. And I don't blame you, Tom, if your pick stays right there on Kansas City for this weekend.
I don't understand.
I don't really either. But you know what? The more often I say that, especially when it comes to odds and betting football, the more I realize that I know little about betting football as much as the people that set the over-unders and the spreads. They are amazing at that for whatever reason.
It blows me away. I don't do the spread. I just pick them what I think. I honestly don't see. I don't know. That's going to be an interesting series. That's going to be an interesting game. It really is. I don't know why I said series of thinking about baseball, but that's going to be a real interesting game. I'm thinking that I don't think the Bills win that game, and I'm talking about my quarterback is with the Bills for my fantasy team. So I'm really picking the wrong thing. But unfortunately, I just see Kansas going up, doing their thing, unless we just, the Bills just continue to keep getting hot and just keep winning, and he keeps throwing up 30-point games in my fantasy league. I'll take it.
Yeah, and a couple of other games that really are on the schedule for the NFL to highlight. Cowboys at Eagles, two teams that are both a combined 9-1 on the season.
Goodness.
That's the Sunday night game. And then Monday night, the Broncos and Chargers. Russell Wilson, who knows with his injury how far along they're going to go. And before I even forget about that too, there's a couple of big college football games this weekend too, Ivan. Your Wolverines hosting Penn State.
Yes.
6-0 against 5-0 on Saturday at noon Eastern. But we also have number 3 Alabama, and we're still not sure if Bryce Young is going to play, at number 6 Tennessee, 6-0 versus 5-0 respectively, and number 8 Oklahoma against number 13. I mean, there is a bunch of football
Write
on
it
this
down.
weekend.
Tennessee defeats Alabama.
Tennessee
defeats Alabama this weekend.
No. That will not happen. And I'm not even an Alabama fan. That's not going to happen.
It's over.
When's the last time Tennessee won anything?
Well, we could be here all night. Tennessee's actually a 7-point dog at home in that game too, by the way.
It's over.
Kind of interesting.
It's over.
It's well, you're right, Tom. This show is over. We got to get out of here. But thank you, everyone, for checking us out. Clutch Time Sports on Twitter and Instagram at Clutch Time TNC. And don't forget, next week, Joey Lynn from SI. We can talk about the Clippers and the NBA. So join us next Wednesday night, 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern. So glad to have you. Ivan, been a good one.
You too, man. And you guys drive safe, get to where you're going, and watch some sports this weekend.
Enjoy the playoffs.